Imagine waking up not to birdsong, but to the chilling grind of steel on stone. Not because your dad is fixing a tool, but because he is sharpening a dagger. And the dress your mum is sewing, the dress for the wedding, is silk dyed the colour of a bruise. That blue is the colour of your fate. Today you are 12. This isn't a story of fairy tale vows or modern romance. Forget the image of lovey-dovey couples holding hand. This is a story of women being currency, children political pawns, and often death being the only escape. This is the reality behind most of human history. The year is 1348. The air is thick with unspoken dread. Your father, Sir William de Clare, a man whose smile could curdle milk, stands silhouetted against the weak morning light, his face a mask of grim determination. He runs his thumb along the freshly honed edge of his dagger, then glances at you, his eyes cold and assessing. You are about to enter a world where the steel of a blade and the words on a contract are more binding than any promise of love. You're about to be sold. The wedding dress hangs limp on a wooden peg, a symbol of everything you are about to lose. The deep blue fabric, dyed with precious indigo, represents 3 months' worth of grain stores. 3 months of survival traded for what? A title? Security? Or simply to be rid of a burden? Your mother sits hunched in the corner, her fingers flying over her rosary beads, whispering prayers that seem to cling to the smoke-stained walls like desperate pleas. Her face is etched with a weariness that belies her 30 years. She knows what awaits you. She lives it every day. The marriage contract sprawls across the wooden table, illuminated by the flickering candlelight. It's a document written in the cold, unfeeling language of Latin, but its meaning is clear. You are a commodity, a means to an end. Sir Geoffrey d'Entfort, aged 43, recently widowed, owner of 3 manors and 200 serfs, seeks bride. The words feel like a brand seared onto your skin. This man, this stranger old enough to be your grandfather, is about to claim you as his own. Your value is listed right there below the description of his wealth. The dowry your father so carefully squeezed out of Sir Geoffrey. It states, Lady Matilda, aged 11, daughter of Sir William de Clare, dowry of 50 mark silver, bloodline traced to King Edward. 11, not 12. Your father shaved a year off your age to make you more appealing, a fresher piece of meat on the market. The lie is a testament to the brutal calculus of this arrangement. You were, after all, his most valuable asset, young enough to be moulded, fertile enough to produce heirs, and noble enough to elevate his family's standing. The fact that you had never met your future husband was irrelevant. The fact that you were still playing with wooden dolls was inconvenient, but not disqualifying. Medieval marriage was fundamentally different from anything we recognize today. It was not a union of equals choosing each other, but a legal and economic arrangement between families, often negotiated when the bride was still in swaddling clothes. The Catholic Church, which would later romanticize marriage as a sacred bond, spent most of the medieval period treating it as a necessary evil, a compromise with human weakness that prevented the greater sin of fornication. The average age of marriage for noble girls during the High Middle Ages was between 12 and 14. For peasant girls, it was slightly higher, around 16 to 18. Not out of any greater respect for childhood, but because poor families needed their daughters' labour longer and could not afford elaborate dowries. But regardless of social class, the fundamental reality remained the same. Marriage was something that happened to women. not something they chose. Your mother's gentle hands shake as she fastens the wooden buttons of your wedding dress. Each button is carved with your family's coat of arms, a swan pierced by an arrow. It seems grimly appropriate. She has been married to your father for 16 years, wed at 13 to a man she met on their wedding day. She bore him 9 children, 5 survived infancy. She has never spoken of love, only of duty, obedience, and the careful navigation of a husband's moods. Remember, she whispers, her breath warm against your ear, a wife must be like water. She takes the shape of whatever vessel contains her. Resistance brings only pain. The words are a curse, a blessing, and a warning all in one. You are being taught to drown. You want to scream, to fight, to run. But there is nowhere to go. You are trapped in a system that sees you as nothing more than property, a vessel for bearing children and securing alliances. You are Matilda de Clare, and today you cease to exist. You become Lady de Montfort, a name you do not recognize, a future you do not want. But you have no choice. The sun rises higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the stone walls of your prison. The day has come. The wedding ceremony itself was a public spectacle, designed to make the transaction irreversible. Unlike modern weddings, medieval marriages were not primarily religious events. The church's involvement was minimal, often just a priest offering a blessing at the church door before the real business began. The ceremony was about witness, about community acknowledgement that a legal transfer had occurred. You are led through the village streets like a sacrificial lamb. The entire community is gathered to watch, not to celebrate, but to bear witness. In a world without written records for most people, public ceremony served as collective memory. These villagers would remember this day, would testify if anyone ever questioned the legitimacy of your union or the inheritance rights of your future children. Faces blurred together, some curious, some pitying, some simply indifferent. The weight of their gaze feels like a physical burden, crushing you beneath its expectations. You try to focus on your mother's hand in yours, but even that feels distant, unreal. Father Benedict stands at the church door, his face carved from stone. He has presided over hundreds of these ceremonies, watched countless young girls led to altars like lambs to the slaughter. His Latin words wash over you like water, meaningless syllables that seal your fate. Wilt thou take this man to be thy wedded husband, to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do you part? You are not asked if you consent. Consent was not a concept that applied to children. And at 12, you were legally a child, regardless of your reproductive capacity. Your father consents on your behalf, as he has consented to every major decision of your life. Your voice, when you manage to whisper, "I will," is barely audible above the wind. It's a lie, a hollow echo that carries no conviction. Sir Geoffrey steps forward to claim his prize. He is a stranger to you, but not to your nightmares. You have heard whispers about his first wife, how she died in childbirth at 15, how she was often seen with bruises on her arms and face, how she grew thin and silent in the months before her death. Now you stand where she once stood, and you know you are already living the story of a life you have not lived. He looks at you now with the same expression a farmer might wear when examining a new horse, evaluating your health, your breeding potential, your likely longevity. There is no warmth in his gaze, no tenderness, only cold calculation. The ring he slides onto your finger is not gold, but iron, and it weighs more than your small hand can comfortably bear. Iron was chosen deliberately. It was cheaper than gold, but also symbolically significant. Iron was hard, unyielding, eternal, like the bonds of marriage. It was not meant to be broken. The symbolic weight of the iron is something you feel on your very bones, crushing the hope of everything you once thought your life would become. After the ceremony comes the feast, a grotesque celebration of your loss of freedom. The great hall of your father's manor has been decorated with winter greenery and smoky torches. Long tables groan under the weight of roasted meat, white bread, and ale. The guests, all adults, all complicit in what is happening, raise their cups in toasts to fertility, to the continuation of bloodlines, to the prosperity of the union. None of them are thinking of you, the child who is about to be sacrificed on the altar of political expediency. You sit beside your new husband, your feet barely touching the floor from the high chair. He speaks to you occasionally, asking simple questions about your education, your health, your monthly courses. You answer in monosyllables, terror rendering you nearly mute. The food on your plate grows cold and congealed as your stomach churns with fear. You're surrounded by people, but utterly alone. The entertainment begins as the evening darkens. A travelling minstrel sings songs of courtly love. Beautiful, impossible stories of knights and ladies, of passion and devotion. The irony is not lost on you. These romanticized tales of love have nothing to do with the reality of medieval marriage. They are fantasies, escapist literature, for a society that had made real love nearly impossible within the bounds of matrimony. Courtly love, as it was practiced in medieval society, was explicitly extramarital. The troubadours of southern France, who invented many of these romantic ideals, sang of love affairs between knights and married ladies, love that was passionate, precisely because it was forbidden and unconsummated. The Church condemned these ideas, but they persisted because they offered an emotional outlet in a world where marriage was purely transactional. The cult of courtly love revealed a dark truth about medieval marriage. It was so devoid of emotional connection that people had to invent an entirely separate concept to describe what we now call romantic love. Marriage was about duty, property, and procreation. Love, if it existed at all, was something that happened outside marriage, in secret, in defiance of social order. As the evening progresses, the guests grow drunker and louder. The conversation turns increasingly crude, filled with jokes about wedding nights, about breaking in young wives, about the importance of immediate consummation. You understand only half of what they say, but the leering faces and raucous laughter make their meaning clear enough. The meaning is made perfectly clear when the village drunk starts pawing at you, and Sir Geoffrey laughs with the other men at your fear. The laughter is a clear warning of what is to come. Your mother appears at your elbow, her face pale but determined. "Come," she says quietly. "It is time." The words are a death sentence. You know what awaits you. The indigo shroud tightens around your soul, smothering any last flicker of hope. The bedding ceremony was perhaps the most horrific aspect of medieval marriage, a public ritual that transformed rape into celebration. The entire wedding party would escort the bride and groom to their chamber, offering advice, making crude jokes, and ensuring that the marriage was immediately consummated. The bride's virginity was not just assumed, but publicly verified. Her bloody sheets displayed as proof of her purity and her husband's successful possession. You are led up the narrow stone stairs to the chamber that has been prepared for this moment. The room is small and cold, lit by a single candle that casts dancing shadows on the stone walls. The bed dominates the space, a large wooden frame with a straw mattress covered in rough linen sheets. It looks more like a place of execution than a marriage bed. The women in the wedding party undress you with practiced efficiency, their hands impersonal and businesslike. Your wedding dress is carefully folded and set aside. It will be kept as a family heirloom, a reminder of this day. Your shift, thin and transparent, offers no protection from the cold air or the eyes of the gathered crowd. Sir Geoffrey enters with the men already half undressed. He is drunk, which might be a mercy. Drunk men often fell asleep before completing their task. But tonight he seems alert, focused, determined to claim what he has purchased. The priest offers a blessing over the marriage bed, sprinkling holy water on the sheets and reciting prayers for fertility. The crowd presses closer, offering advice, encouragement, and jest. Some of the men make crude gestures, miming what is about to happen. The women nod approvingly, as if your terror is perfectly normal and expected. This public violation of privacy was not seen as cruel or unusual. It was considered necessary to ensure the marriage was legally binding. A marriage that was not consummated was not a marriage at all. It could be annulled, the contracts voided, the political alliance dissolved. The witnesses were there to prevent any later claims of non-consummation, to ensure that the transaction was completed as agreed. You're nothing more than a broodmare with a title. You wonder if anyone has ever seen you as more. Finally, mercifully, the crowd begins to withdraw, but not before the married women offer their final advice. Submit completely. Make no sound. Think of your duty to produce heirs. Your mother kisses your forehead and whispers a prayer in your ear, her tears falling on your face like rain. The door closes with a sound like a coffin lid. You are alone with your husband, this stranger who now owns you more completely than he owns his horses or his land. You are his property, his cattle, his to use as he sees fit. The law provides no protection for wives. The Church teaches that a woman's body belongs to her husband, that she has no right to refuse his advances, that her purpose is to bear his children, regardless of the cost to her, health or happiness. The medieval concept of marriage was built on the foundation of absolute male authority. The husband was the head of the household, the final arbiter of all decisions, the owner of all property, including his wife's body. The marriage vows reflected this reality. While the husband promised to love and cherish his wife, she promised to love, cherish, and obey. The word obey was not ceremonial. It was a legal requirement backed by both civil and religious law. What happened in that chamber was not love-making, but conquest. Medieval marriage manuals, written by men for men, offered advice on how to break in a young wife, how to overcome her natural resistance, how to assert dominance from the very beginning. The concept of marital rape did not exist because rape was defined as a crime against property, and a husband could not steal what already belonged to him. As he approaches, you try to remember the swan pierced by an arrow emblazoned on your dress. Perhaps it is a symbol after all, a reminder that even beauty can be vulnerable, that even a creature born to fly can be brought down by force. But that swan also survived the arrow. You must do the same. You close your eyes and pray for morning. The morning after brings no relief, only the continuation of your new reality. You wake to find blood on the sheets, the evidence of your husband's successful consummation that will be displayed for all to see. Your body aches in ways you did not know it could ache. You move carefully, like an old woman, every step a reminder of what you have lost. Sir Geoffrey is already dressed and preparing to leave for his estates. He speaks to you briefly, formally outlining your duties as his wife. You will manage his household, oversee the servants, receive guests, and bear his children. You will not leave the manor without his permission. You will not speak to other men without his supervision. You will not refuse his advances, no matter how tired, sick, or frightened you might be. The legal reality of medieval marriage was that wives had no independent existence. They could not own property, could not make contracts, could not bring lawsuits, could not even make wills without their husband's consent. The legal doctrine of coverture meant that a married woman was covered by her husband's legal identity. She ceased to exist as an individual person and became merely an extension of her husband's will. Your new home is a fortress, both literally and metaphorically. The manor house of Sir Geoffrey sits on a hill overlooking the village, its stone walls thick and impenetrable. There are no locks on the inside of doors, because locks were meant to keep people out, not in. But you are imprisoned nonetheless, trapped by law, custom, and the certain knowledge that there is nowhere to run. The household staff regard you with a mixture of pity and weariness. They have seen wives come and go, have witnessed the cycle of hope and despair that defines the lives of married women. The older servants remember Sir Geoffrey's first wife, how she arrived young and eager, how she gradually faded into silence and shadow, how she died screaming in childbirth while her husband drank ale in the hall below. Your days develop a rhythm of submission and endurance. You wake before dawn to pray, spend the morning overseeing household tasks, the afternoon in needlework or spinning, and the evening in your husband's bed. There is no privacy, no solitude, no moment when you belong to yourself. Even your prayers are monitored. The chaplain reports your spiritual state to your husband, who has the right to correct any deviations from proper wifely devotion. The first pregnancy comes quickly, as was expected and desired. Medieval medicine understood little about conception beyond the observation that young women who were frequently bedded soon showed signs of carrying children. There was no concept of family planning, no understanding of the female cycle, no recognition that constant pregnancy might be dangerous to a woman's health. You are 14 when your first child is born, and the experience nearly kills you. Medieval childbirth was a terrifying ordeal that claimed the lives of countless women. Without understanding of hygiene, anesthesia, or surgical intervention, birth was a primitive struggle between life and death. The mortality rate for women in childbirth was staggering. Estimates suggest that between 10 and 20% of medieval women died from complications related to pregnancy and birth. The midwife who attends you is an elderly woman named Agnes, her hands stained with the blood of 1,000 births. She knows her trade well, but her knowledge is limited to folk remedies and superstition. She places a piece of jasper on your belly to ease the pain, hangs a charm of eagle's claws around your neck to speed delivery, and mutters prayers to Saint Margaret. the patron saint of childbirth. Labour begins at dawn and continues through the night. You scream until your voice is gone, and then continue screaming silently, your mouth open, but no sound emerging. The pain is beyond anything you could have imagined. Wave after wave of agony that threatens to tear you apart. Agnes forces you to drink bitter herbs that make you vomit, then more herbs to stop the vomiting. Your husband paces in the hall below, concerned not for your suffering, but for the fate of his potential heir. The baby, when it finally comes, is a girl. The disappointment in the room is palpable. A daughter has some value. She can eventually be married off to cement another political alliance, but she is not the son that every medieval husband demanded. Sir Geoffrey's reaction is cold fury. He does not hold the child, does not ask about her health, does not inquire about your condition. He simply leaves the room, already planning the next pregnancy that will, he hopes, produce a male heir. You name the baby Eleanor after your grandmother, though you know the name may be changed if your husband disapproves. In medieval society, fathers had absolute authority over their children's names, education, and future. The bond between mother and child, while emotionally powerful, had no legal recognition. Children belong to their fathers as completely as wives belong to their husbands. The indigo shroud settles once more, suffocating the small spark of joy that Eleanor brought you. The cycle begins again. Another pregnancy, another difficult birth, another daughter, then another. By the time you are 18, you have given birth to 4 children, 2 of whom died in infancy. Your body is worn out, prematurely aged, marked by the constant demands of pregnancy and childbirth. You look in the polished metal mirror and see your mother's face. The same hollow eyes, the same resigned expression, the same defeated posture. You were a wife, a broodmare, and a prisoner. The swan had given up hope of ever flying again, ever flying again.